This comparison is intense. It took me like a week of testing, a day and a half of writing and shooting photos, and about an hour and a half to shoot the cut down monologue that you're about to see. So yeah, I'm not gonna waste your time with some contrived intro here. Welcome to my S20 Ultra versus iPhone 11 Pro Max full comparison. I've had the 11 Pro Max as my daily driver since September, and I've been heavily using the S20 Ultra for about a week, and I'm here to compare pretty much every aspect between the two. But before we jump into things here, I would really appreciate it if you leave a like on this video, comment if you have any questions, suggestions, or opinions, as the YouTube algorithm likes that and will help push my content to more people. Beginning with design, both of these phones are massive and heavy and premium feeling, but of course there are nuances in the ways they're constructed. For one, the iPhone 11 Pro has a stainless steel band surrounding its chassis, whereas the S20 Ultra has an aluminum one like the rest of the S20 line. And this metallic difference makes the iPhone 11 Pro a bit heavier than the S20, although the weight difference is pretty negligible if you ask me. And despite the fact that the iPhone is heavier, the S20 Ultra is a bit thicker. It comes in at 8.8 millimeters thick versus the iPhone's 8.1 millimeter thickness. And here's something funny. In my opinion, although Samsung has made some arguably not ergonomic phones like the S7 Edge and the S8 with those really awkward side edges, Samsung really beat Apple in ergonomics this year. I think that the S20 Ultra fits more nicely in my hand than the iPhone does, though the iPhone is still ergonomic. I just like the way Samsung sculpted the corners on this phone better. They dig into my palm a bit less. And to talk a bit more about construction, of course, there's differences in the back glass material. We have glossy glass with the S20 Ultra and matte glass with the iPhone 11 Pro. I'm not going to say which back is better because this is kind of up to your own preference. And in regard to the colors available, as you may know, the iPhone is available in silver, black, gold, and this midnight green color, whereas at least in the US, the S20 Ultra is available in this cosmic gray and a black color. Another sort of obvious difference has to do with I/O. The iPhone features the dated Lightning port. They need to get rid of it. It's been around since 2012. And to no one's surprise, the S20 Ultra features the forward-thinking and universal USB Type-C. And to quickly touch on the speaker setups here, both are just amazing. I love them both, and they better be fantastic for how much you're paying for these phones. But of course, there are discernible differences. In my experience, the iPhone has more impactful bass, whereas the S20 Ultra just has more clear mids and highs. And I'll demonstrate that here with a quick speaker test. So yeah, these phones pack amazing stereo speaker setups, but of course, once again, there are differences like I mentioned, but at the end of the day, they should really serve you well for any media consumption you should be doing. And last up, let's touch on the camera modules here. I'm not saying that the S20 Ultra is like ugly or anything, but the camera module is definitely obnoxious, more so than that of the iPhone. But let's be real here, the iPhone 11 Pro kind of started that trend. But either way, both don't look half bad, and really anything beats the camera setup found on the OnePlus 7T. Next up, let's talk display quality. And while both these phones have two of the best displays on the market right now, of course, just like design, there are differences that we need to discuss. First up, with the size, iPhone 11 Pro Max here features a 6.5-inch screen, whereas the S20 Ultra features a massive 6.9-inch display that definitely has more height, but the width here is pretty equivalent, I would say. There's also a difference in max resolution. The iPhone maxes out at 2436 by 1125, and of course, you can't really change that in the settings, whereas the S20 Ultra maxes out at 3200 by 1440. That is 3K for you right there, and has a standard resolution or an FHD plus resolution of 2400 by 1080. So that's 458 ppi fixed versus a max 511 ppi with the S20 Ultra, or 381 ppi if you do use this with the FHD plus and want to use the high refresh rate mode. And speaking of which, that is a big selling feature of the S20 Ultra. Its display can max out at 120 Hertz, whereas the iPhone's is locked at 60. And if you know anything about high refresh rate, it makes for a really delicious, smooth experience with One UI here, versus the iPhone. Although it has a 120 Hertz input rate, it just doesn't have the same smooth quality when you for example, swipe through things and open apps and, just engage animations in general. Also, the bezels with the S20 Ultra are significantly smaller and slimmer compared to the iPhones, which makes for a more futuristic look and feel. Not to mention, the O cutout camera looks so much better than the now outdated notch design that we have with the iPhone as well. And to quickly touch on color, both of these phones have very vibrant and colorful displays, although there are differences in the overall profile that you get. The S20 Ultra just has a bluer display out the box, and that's why I set it to be a little bit warmer. And of course, you can toggle between a vivid and a natural color profile, the natural profile being flatter and the vivid one being more saturated, whereas with the iPhone, you don't have much control over that. However, you can engage True Tone, which will adjust the color temperature of the display to fit your room. But yeah, overall in regard to image quality, both of these phones are nearly perfect, at least as of 2020. However, the S20 Ultra seems to edge out the iPhone a bit, as it does feature a bigger display with a higher resolution, and also the experts are really loving this display as well. For example, according to DisplayMate, an organization that apparently tests smartphone displays, the S20 Ultra has the best smartphone display as of right now, as it broke 12 of their records in their testing. Next up, let's talk battery life. And although I'm no scientist, I haven't done any really in-depth testing, I can assure you, even running the S20 Ultra at 120 Hz and running both these phones at max brightness, they're going to get you through a whole day of usage and then some. To be more technical though, the iPhone 11 Pro Max packs a 3,968 milliamp hour battery, whereas the Ultra packs a whopping 5,000 milliamp hour battery. And if you do look at the specific, more scientific figures posted about both these phones' screen on times, if you run the Ultra at FHD plus resolution at 60 Hz, it performs nearly identical to the iPhone 11 Pro Max. But if you do enable the high refresh rate mode with the S20 Ultra, you will be losing some screen on time, substantial screen on time at that, up to 3 hours, according to this test, although it isn't, reflective of everyday usage. So with this information, once again, in theory, battery life can be equivalent with both these phones, but if you want to run at a higher refresh rate, you will be sacrificing screen on time. But I can tell you, it's definitely worth it, especially because you can fast charge the S20 Ultra, and of course, wirelessly fast charge the device as well. That is a feature that is not present with the iPhone 11 Pro Max, despite the fact that it can wirelessly charge with its matte glass back. And you also do get a fast charging brick in the box with the S20 Ultra, whereas with the iPhone, you have to purchase your own separately. Next up, let's talk camera performance, and this is the biggest section in my outline. It took me the longest to write. It's like more than a page long, so let me take a deep breath before we get into it here. So Samsung gave us a hell of a camera module this year. As you can see, it's a quad camera setup with a 108 megapixel main camera, a secondary telephoto camera with a 48 megapixel resolution, a 12 megapixel ultra wide, and a time of flight sensor, compared to the iPhone's tri-camera setup, which features 3 12 megapixel shooters, 1 ultra wide, 1 wide angle, and 1 telephoto. And one of Samsung's biggest features with the Ultra is the 100x space zoom, and although some people say it's a gimmick, I think it's pretty fucking amazing. Is the zoom quality perfect and lossless? Of course not, and it definitely diminishes as you reach the 100x magnification number, but at 5x and 10x, I'm getting really impressive results, stuff that I could not do with my iPhone here that maxes out at 2x magnification with its telephoto lens. Another noteworthy thing is the fact that the S20 Ultra's main sensor is bigger than its competitors, and I'm not talking about resolution, and although the individual micron pixel size is smaller, the sensor size is bigger, and that allows more light to enter it, which results in more shallow depth of field, which is really amazing to see naturally in photos and videos. But when comparing image processing and image quality captured, the story isn't quite that lopsided and is actually very variable situation to situation. Samsung's image processing is definitely more contrasty and blue in color, and in some cases a bit softer than the iPhone. Whereas the iPhone, I found, is pretty consistently sharp and kind of has that clarity aspect to it, and just a warmer color science in general, a bit more natural to the environment that you capture your image or video in. Dynamic range is a bit of a mixed bag in my experience. In some cases the S20 Ultra performs a lot better in the case of this photo with this brick wall and the sky here, whereas in some cases the iPhone 11 Pro does better in some images and videos. And I will say once again, the Samsung image processing does kind of have a contrast bias, which can sometimes kind of diminish the detail in the shadows and just make them look darker overall. Also, to quickly compare the portrait modes on these devices, both are excellent, I would say. And again, I do think that the S20 Ultra does contribute a bit more natural bokeh, which does help its case, but in the case of this photo of this glass piece that I have here, the background blur on both just looks great. Let's also quickly talk about the selfie cameras on these phones. On the S20 Ultra, we have a 40 megapixel sensor, and then on the iPhone 11 Pro Max, we have another 12 megapixel sensor. And from what I can tell, the selfie camera quality with both these phones is just excellent. However, I will say Samsung's images just look a bit more smoothed out, although I did use the original filter. I didn't like turn on the beauty mode or anything. I made sure it was turned off. And yeah, my skin does not look this good in real life. With the iPhone, you can definitely see more of your natural details, if you will. But overall, the image quality, the colors, the overall sharpness is pretty comparable, although I will say once again, there is more contrast with the Samsung image here, and of course the smoothness does take away a bit from the overall sharpness of the image as well. Now let's talk video. While the iPhone 11 Pro Max continues to impress me with its incredible 4K video quality, the S20 Ultra packs a punch as well, and video coming out of it is nicely stabilized and crispy and a bit flatter than that of the iPhone, which I actually enjoy as a content creator. And one thing I will say is autofocus is a bit rougher, at least right now with this current update compared to the iPhone, although in one case the iPhone couldn't rack up close focus on these branches that I was recording, whereas the Ultra did, and you could see the beautiful natural bokeh the Ultra offers as well here. And one major video recording feature that is present in the S20 Ultra and absent in the iPhone 11 Pro Max here is 8K recording, which I thought at first I was like, okay, yeah, like who's gonna record that? It's like 4 times the size and resolution of 4K, that's so impractical. But even so, oh my god, it is so impressive. Although you can only capture video at 24 FPS, it looks like something out of a cinema camera in my opinion. It's nothing like I've ever seen. The detail is just so amazing. And although it might not be super practical right now, it is definitely innovation on Samsung's part, and I am wholeheartedly impressed that I took this clip with a smartphone. Both of these phones pack really great long exposure or night mode capturing modes, and in this case where I took a picture of my very dimly lit basement setup, I think that the S20 Ultra edges out the iPhone here as it managed to pull more details out of this environment. But yeah, all in all, both these phones have incredible camera setups, and I do think you get what you pay for. And I gotta say, this year Samsung's smartphone video is an even more fierce competitor to Apple's. And although I think some of the stills that come out of the iPhone look a bit crispier and more natural, the zoom capabilities of the S20 Ultra are just fantastic, and they're definitely useful and practical, especially at 5 to 10x. And again, 8K is just mind-blowing. And finally, let's talk performance and software experience. And right off the bat, Snapdragon 865 does not perform as well as the A13, at least in synthetic benchmarks like Geekbench 5 here. Apple is still very much ahead with their silicon, but in my experience, this doesn't have much of an impact in regard to everyday daily usage. Overall, UI snappiness is pretty much equal between these two phones, and it might even be skewed in the direction of the S20 Ultra simply because of its refresh rate. It makes the phone feel faster, even if it's technically not. And I gotta say, Apple needs to climb aboard the high refresh rate train, otherwise its products, which do have better SoCs, are going to feel slower in the midst of high refresh rate devices like the S20 and S20 Ultra here. Another notable thing is that the S20 Ultra packs 12 to 16 gigs of RAM, which totally blows the iPhone's 4 gigs out of the water. And mind you, Apple is really great at optimizing iOS for their devices, but still, the iPhone has a third to a fourth of the RAM found in the Ultra, and I'm sure the extra memory found in the Samsung device makes for a better multitasking experience and allows you to keep more apps open at once. To quickly touch on biometric unlock, with Face Unlock, both these devices are pretty much comparable in speed and accuracy, although the Samsung Face Unlock is going to be less secure as it doesn't have all the Face ID tech found in the notch of the iPhone. And as you may know, the S20 Ultra also packs an under-display fingerprint sensor, which is convenient, I'll tell you, although it is a little bit finicky. Sometimes it's not completely accurate, and I have had better experiences with like the OnePlus 7 Pro, for example. And smartphone gaming, of course, is going to be amazing on both these devices. Although I don't do a ton of it myself, whatever you throw at both these phones is going to perform really nicely with high frames, as these phones have some of the best SoCs on the market right now, and you might even get more frames out of the S20 Ultra, of course, because it does have a higher refresh rate display. So having compared pretty much every aspect between these two devices, what is my conclusion? Well, I gotta tell you, the Ultra swept me off my feet. The display is gorgeous and huge. The camera setup is nothing like I've ever seen, and One UI at 120 Hz is just an amazing experience. I'm not sure yet, but will I switch or at least keep this phone around? That's very possible, which I did not anticipate when I first ordered this phone. And the iPhone 11 Pro Max, despite its slight 6-month age, still very much competes with this Goliath of a handset. But still, it does lack the same magic and innovative quality its Korean competitor has, at least right now. And we've yet to see what the iPhone 12 Pro Max Omega Alpha Supreme, or whatever Apple calls it, will bring to the table. And that about wraps things up here. I hope this video was helpful, whether you're making a purchasing decision or if you just wanted to know, which phone is better in certain aspects. This was a doozy to make, so once again, I would really appreciate it if you leave a like on this video, comment if you have any questions, suggestions, or opinions, and subscribe for more content like this. If you're an Android user, please subscribe to my channel. I love my audience, but they are biased a bit towards Apple, and I would love to create more Android content, so come aboard if you will. I really do encourage you to. And yeah, expect some more S20 content coming soon, and of course my regular iPad-oriented content as well. And as always, I'm Noah, and I will catch you all in the next one.